Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you saying now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Romance at a Glance. I am your host, Bridget. With me, as always, is my co-host, Shawnee. How you doing, Shawnee?
I'm doing so good today, Bridget. I'm ready for this book.
Yes! Today we are tackling Lover Unbound. This is season 2, episode 4, but book 5 of the Black Dagger Brotherhood.
You know I'm a fan of the brothers.
I know you're a fan.
I love the brothers.
Love me some
and
brothers.
I love... Let's talk about this book, Bridget. I'm ready.
Yes, we have been waiting for this book. This is Vicious's book, and we have been on pins and needles, I would say.
Yeah. I forgot what happened in this book.
I forgot basically everything about this book. It is way different upon rereading than it was the first time I read it. But let me just catch everybody up where we're at. So The last book left us off with Butch and Marissa had gotten together. Butch becomes a brother. There is so much crackling sexual tension between Butch and V that all of last episode we were talking about the thruple of our dreams. Did not happen, but we were pushing for it.
Oh, God.
And in this book, we knew that it was going to be Vicious's book. And it basically takes us down the journey of Vicious meeting Jane, who is an incredibly, incredibly good surgeon of the ER and into genetics and human. And he meets her when he gets shot in the heart and she saves him from dying. And then he immediately wakes up like the bonded male and takes a good whiff of her and is like, she's mine. She's mine. I'll take her with me.
Yum, 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 yum.
That's basically how I imagine it being like, and she's like, okay, what now? I'm not going with you. And they have to literally knock her unconscious because she refuses to go, which I think is a smart plan. You never want to be taken to place number 2.
No.
And then the other big thing that
I
happened.
learned that from Oprah, by the way. Don't go to a second location, no matter what.
Yeah. And then the other big thing that happens in this book is that we find out that the scribe virgin is his mom, and he is to be the primale of the species, meaning that he is going to mate with all of the chosen and have all of the babies and replenish the ranks of the brotherhood. So that's kind of where we are at. Shawnee, before we dip into this book, I know you're smiling at me and very excited to dip in.
But you have a fact for me.
I may have a fun fact for you today. So, J.R. Ward, the author of the series, titan of the paranormal romance genre. Did you know? I just found this out from some of our dear friends on the Insta that Black Dagger Brotherhood and her Fallen Angels series are going to come together.
What?
Yes. So in upcoming books of the Legacy series and the Fallen Angels series, the books are going to come together. So Lassiter is going to go over to the Fallen Angels books, I think in maybe the next book. Please correct us if we're wrong and let us know. But Lassiter is going to go over there, and Davina and Lassiter are going to have some sort of tussle because he's on the side of good, and they are going to be featured in each other's books. Please give me your initial reaction because your face right now, the people need to hear what's behind the face.
Okay, so, I mean, I was processing. That face was like my processing face. So, like, I love the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I don't really love the Fallen Angel series.
Exactly.
So I was like, is it just a one-off crossover, or are they gonna start interweaving? Because I don't really need them to interweave.
I do not know because I think this is like upcoming things.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're always going to be interwoven, but I do know that eventually the timelines are going to like sync up for the Legacy books.
This means I got to read it now.
Well, that's okay. That was my initial reaction was I don't want to read this because I read the first 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I was giving those Fallen Angels a try and I just didn't like that series very much.
You gave it a good try if you read 3 of them. I got through like 1.5 and I was like, I can't do this.
I know. So now I'm concerned. And then also another of our friends on Instagram was talking about the Legacy books and was like, which one is your favorite? And I realized that I've maybe only read 3 of the Legacy books. And now I'm thinking, well, shit, do I commit to it and read them all? I mean,
Bridget, I feel like we're like, romance book podcasters. We have to
I feel like we got to commit.
We got to commit.
Oh, boy. Okay. I think this is going to be Patreons, though. I don't think this is going to be...
Yeah, we can't do...
This is not going to be full episodes. So if you would like to hear our thoughts in the future about future Black Dagger Brotherhood books and legacies, hop onto Patreon and we will have all of the deets there.
Yes, and we will be talking about all things Black Dagger Brotherhood in our Discord group. If you want to get in that, just head over to Patreon, and it is one of our perks.
Yes,
come chat with us.
Chat immediately with us at all times, because obviously we're modern people and have our phones with us at all times.
At all times. When I don't have my phone, I'm like, something's missing. Something's missing. Oh my god. Oh my god, where is it?
All right, so let's dip into the book. So
Yes.
let's quick cover the cover art. I mean, my thoughts are basically that it's kind of the same as the rest of the series.
They're all the same.
They have a color wash. Someone's
Yeah.
biting someone's neck or kissing it. Again, the thing that I'm not a huge fan of is that I'm not getting any sense from that cover that this is going to be about BDSM or have any sort of kink in it.
Yeah.
Get nothing about Jane being human or a doctor. And also, he has no goatee, which I was like, you could have just found someone with a goatee.
I think they should have found some. I think the covers are lame. Like, after the first 2 books of the same exact cover, like, I want something more. And I think that because she names all the books the same, love her this, love her this, love her this, I need the cover to tell me, like, to be a real visual cue as to whose book it is.
I agree.
This does not do that at all. You can put them all back to back and I'd be like, I have no idea whose book is what book.
I mean, we can attest that because literally every time we're about to read a new book, we're like, wait, which one is that one? Who's revealed? What's revealing?
Really?
What's happening? Unbound? I don't know.
Who's Unbound?
Why is he unbound? I don't understand. What's happening?
I mean, Unbound sounds more like Zadis than it sounds like, okay, fine, but whatever. It
I
doesn't
know,
matter.
Unbound.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe Unbound from his past, or she's unbound from humanity.
Maybe.
Those are just guesses.
So many guesses. But you could say that for Wrath. Wrath is unbound from Marissa. You know, like,
sure.
like,
Well, but it would have to be about Beth. It's not about Marissa, but he is unbound from her, I guess. Unbound from the chains of not
matrimony.
accepting the chains of kinghood.
You know, like,
They're all been unbound by something.
I feel like they're vague. I feel like it's vague.
It's very vague.
You know, I feel like she had a list of them, and then after a while, she starts running out of them, and she's like, "Crap, okay."
Well, that's why in the future they move away from that
Yeah,
because they're at a certain point there's just like not enough things that you can put in after
Lover.
lover and make it make sense. So I support that she moved forward.
I do too.
Speaking of which, Lover at Last is going to be the last episode of season 2, featuring our favorites, or at least my favorites.
My favorites too.
Blake and Quinn. You do
Quinn.
not understand how hard I shipped those fools.
Yes.
From these beginning books. I have a little section where we're going to talk about them, and I just heart them so much. I heart them.
Well, when they
so
like
much.
started taking care of John Matthew,
I
and
know.
they were out, like at that point,
The three of them together are my fave.
Yes. Again,
fave.
I would have also accepted this throuple.
Thruple. Where are the fucking thruples? Also, I just learned the term thruple last year. I was watching a television show. What was I watching? I was watching...
Oh, Schitt's Creek.
No, actually. Although I really want to watch that because it looks hilarious. I was watching The Politician on Netflix.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that?
I know what it is. I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's actually really entertaining, and they all talk as fast as me, which I really liked. So, and in it, this lady is in a throuple with 2 guys, and I was like, throuple? Because you always hear threesome.
Yeah.
But throuple where everyone is in a relationship with everyone else, I love it. I love the word, love the term, love the idea.
Support it.
I support it. Okay, let's talk
get it.
about the book. Let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Hannah, because Hannah is only featured very briefly, Jane's sister. But I do feel like she really set the tone for Jane's character. And I was a really big fan of Jane's backstory.
So Jane's backstory, I think, is great for like explaining her. But I didn't quite understand why her parents were so
Shitty and
shitty
weird.
to her. Yeah, like normally it's like, like Butch, he wasn't really their child, you know,
Right.
whatever. So it explained why the dad was so mean to him all the time. But her family, like, she just wasn't cute. And she, like,
I think it's just that they were just very cold people and very formal people. And they were not people who maybe should have ever had children. And
Yeah.
Hannah, because of her sort of inherent energy and sort of cuteness and
She was hard not to love.
She was hard. Yeah, she was harder she was easier for her to get under their skin.
Yeah.
And whereas Jane was more reserved and more, so for them, it was easier for them to like ignore her basically.
This makes sense because I remember very distinctly my mom telling me when I was an adult, she was like, this is so fucked up, but she was like, you were easier to beat Like when like if I beat you, you would like scream and holler and cry. She's like, if I would beat your sister, she would just like lightly whimper and not cry that much. And it was so sad and it was so hard to beat her. And I was like, if I had known that,
If I had known that was the reason I was getting hit more, I would have been like,
I would have been whimpering like what the, and who says that? It's fucked up.
First of all, that's fucked up. Secondly, I think it's hilarious that your mom didn't say, and I was wrong to beat you altogether. And I literally beat you because it was more satisfying for me. And your sister was sadder is also a fucked up thing. I did not get beat in my childhood, thankfully. But I do remember distinctly one time my dad was going to spank me. Because me and my sister had been doing something bad. And so and my dad was like the king of delayed punishment and disappointment. So like we didn't get spanked. I mean, I maybe got spanked like 3 times my whole life, but like the fear of spanking was always there.
Yeah.
And if you did get spanked, you had to go walk up to your room by yourself and wait. And then he came in and he was disappointed. And then while he was walking up the stairs,
he gave you a calculated spanking?
It was so fucking calculated. And he would like snap the belt, so the fear would be like rising in you. Before he even got there, you'd be fucking in tears. You'd be like, I'm sorry, I was a bad kid. I'm doing it again. So, I mean, in retrospect, we didn't do that many horrible things because we were like, the fear of it was there. Then we would walk up the stairs, it'd be this. And I remember my sister was 3 years older than me, and she told me to put a book under my shorts because it would hurt less if he spanked me. And I thought, I was probably like 5. So I thought it was like a totally reasonable, like he wouldn't know there's a book.
Right now. I'm dying right now. I can see where this is going.
I thought it was totally reasonable. So he comes up the stairs, and he's like, talk about it. And he's like disappointed by He's like, okay, I'm going to spank you. And he always like pretended like he was going to use the belt. Never did.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't even think he smacked my butt one time because he saw the book and he just like burst into hysterical laughter. And then I was like, yeah, tell me too. And like, he just thought I think he just like couldn't get past the fact that I was like so sad, but also like I was that kid who like I could get out of pretty much anything with some charm and a smile and like a little devilish glint. My daughter's the same way. She'll do something and then she'll look at me out of the side of her eye and be like, and I'm like, you little sneaker, I love you. I'll just be laughing so hard at her instead of being like,
it is really hard to like spank a kid or even threaten to spank him when you're cracking up laughing. You look like an evil
you either have to
witch.
give in to the laughter and just embrace whatever bad behavior it is, or you have to really wait to laugh till later.
Yeah.
It's hard to laugh till later, though.
It is.
She's funny.
It is.
Anyways, that is my history with spanking. Vicious's history with spanking is obviously a little bit different than mine. So we do get a lot of his backstory in this in the bloodletter camp. And the bloodletter was his father. And then we find out the scribe virgin was his mother. Surprise. Yes. Which actually kind of makes sense because he has like the magical hand.
Yeah. It does explain the magical hand. It gives me more like context for that.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering like, how do you get this magical hand?
And he has visions. And no one else does. It's not like that's one type of weird extra power that the Brotherhood has. Like he's the only one who has anything like that. So I actually was okay with it. I was reading in the comments of Goodreads that many, many people were not okay with this.
His visions or
him being
hand?
the scribe virgin's kid. And I was like, why?
Why?
Why does it matter? I think it makes sense.
I mean, she's got to make a story. She can't keep using the same storyline for everybody.
I agree.
There's got to be,
I agree.
And I like it because the scribe virgin, we always think of her like a deity, like Jesus or God who can do kind of like no wrong and everything you do is right. But she's like super flawed.
Totally.
Like, you know.
I enjoyed actually getting a little glimpse at her. I think that she's a terrible parent.
Oh, yeah, terrible parent.
I mean, the fact that at the end we find out that she's been locking up his twin sister, Pain, who he doesn't know about, for centuries. Just frozen in stasis. I didn't know how to deal with her, so I just locked her in the closet. It's pretty fucked up. Yeah. And at the end, she's still debating, like, maybe it's a good idea for me to let her go. And I'm like, yeah, you fucking crazy lady. Let her go. But I appreciate that she knows that she was wrong and that she did wrong.
Yeah.
And
they make a reference to her having a parent.
Yes.
Which
creator.
Yeah.
Which I did not remember at all.
At all.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was kind of like the end all be all, but no. Like there's somebody that she still like has a fear from or fear of. Yep. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And they actually, in a couple of the sentences, were talking about how she's like, well, I can't go to him because he's not going to care.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to fix it because everything has a price, and I know that, and I was the one who wanted to bear a child of my own, and so I broke like the rules of basically like.
Was it because she bore two children?
No, it was because she had a kid at all.
At
Because
all,
her
okay.
gift of creation was creating their race all together, but she wanted to have her own kid. So then she went and had her own kid, which broke sort of the laws of her ability
Why
to
did
create.
she choose the bloodletter? Like,
Because remember, she actually says that.
she does explain it, but still, I was like, but really, it wasn't.
Because she doesn't know anything.
Fred wasn't available.
I mean, we find out from Cormia, like they don't see males.
Yeah.
They don't know anything except for what they read or see. And she just was trying, I mean, she was following like what she thought would be the best, which was like the strongest, the fiercest, you know, at the time. I mean, this is like the dark
Strong
ages.
babies. Give me strong babies.
I mean, basically.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think she understood sex and understood that he was a savage and was going to just like rape the body she went down in there for the entire, although I guess she was consenting. So just like,
yeah, but she talks about how savage
like,
it was.
Like she almost died during it. And
then he wouldn't even give her the seed, which I was like, oh, that's fucked up. She's like, he knew.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't give me the seed. So she went through all that and then didn't even get pregnant. She had to make a deal and then give him one baby.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I doubt
for-
she told him.
About
Did not
the
know
other
this,
one?
but my theory is that she did not tell him about pain.
oh, I don't know.
That's my theory. Because I do not remember.
Maybe he didn't want the girl.
The other possibility is that he only wanted a male child.
Yeah,
and
but
he
we
didn't
don't know.
care.
So we're gonna have to find that out.
I know. So that's like, that'll be a fun little, and it'll be fun to see, you know, and then we also have kind of like the foreshadowing of Manny, who is the general leader of the surgeons above Jane and her best friend. And when Vicious sees him, he's like, I don't know why I think brother when I see him. So I'm also intrigued about that because I'm like, foreshadowing, he's coming back.
But the funny thing is like Vicious always talks about having visions. And in the other books, he talks about them like drying up and that he's not having any visions anymore. But nobody ever doubts his visions, right? So if he has a vision, I mean, nobody's ever like, oh, don't trust Vicious's visions. And in this book, it was weird to me that he easily dismissed his vision of Jane like dying or being hurt.
Oh, like when the black like cloud, because I don't think he had a clear one. It was just like a black ominous thing. I think he just didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, like,
but yeah, I think it was. I mean,
I'm like, you are the person. He talks about having no worth in the Brotherhood if he doesn't have visions, which means that he knows that his visions are correct. So it was weird to me that he was a little bit more lax in caring for Jane than I thought he should be.
I totes agree. I think that it wasn't a full vision. When I read that chapter, I did not see it as a vision, but maybe I'm wrong. But it was more in the way it like appeared to me in my brain. It was like a feeling.
Yeah.
Almost. But I do think that he thought something was weird about her neighbors and about the truck and whatever. And I'm like, it seems insane that he left her there without the security and without at least, because he tells her he's going to go kill lessers and she's like, okay, go kill them. But he doesn't really say like, you have to be vigilant. Like you cannot do anything at night or whatever without having me come walk with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like he
didn't give her the proper,
he didn't give her the spiel. And I felt like she needed a spiel. Although at that point she had just said, I'm going to come live at the mansion and be the Brotherhood's private doctor. So I guess at that point he wasn't even thinking about it because he was like, oh, they'll never become a reason why lessers would find her because she'll be with us.
Yeah.
I guess.
But I honestly, like, in the book, I was like, why isn't he trying to have her move in with him already? Like,
well, because he did say that he wanted to support her career and her desire to be, you know, chief of surgery and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I actually thought was cool. I didn't mind it. I did think it was made me laugh that like one day apart, and they were like, "This is not gonna work." Both of them were like, "Nah, it's been one day. We can't handle this." Which I can totally imagine. Like, I can't even imagine if I was someone who worked days and my husband worked nights, and you only saw them for like an hour on each end or something. I feel like that would be really hard to sustain.
I think it's really hard. I do think it's hard, like, not seeing someone for multiple days or at like weird times like that. I think, like, personally myself, I love alone time. So I could go be alone for like a week, no problem. But I have to like I know it's a week and that's a thing. Like if Brendan is working or if my partner is working and he's late coming home or he's gonna stay late, I can't like go to sleep without him.
Yeah.
Like I'll be up till like 5 a.m. in the morning, like just twiddling my thumbs, running circles around the house, like playing a game, doing a thing, like like on
'Cause you're just
Instagram.
used to it.
Yeah, it's really strange.
I find that too. Like if like Leo's been having some longer weeks at work the last 3 weeks, and so he hasn't been home for dinner as much. And then when he comes home, he either like works or he's trying to unwind a little because his mind has just been like maxed. So he'll be like video gaming, and the baby's been waking up earlier, so I've been going to bed really early, and it's so much harder for me at 9:30 to be like, I should go to bed by myself. That like last night he was tired, so he went to bed. He's like, I'm gonna get in bed, and at 9:30 we're both out. But like sometimes I'll just be like, well, I'll just read, or I'll be like diddling around the internet or working on the podcast or something, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, it's 11. Why am I up so late? And it's like because he hasn't gone to bed yet, and I'm just used to us going to bed at the same time. So I feel that.
It's like, I did also enjoy that Jane had that Ouija board like experience with her sister that actually like spelled out his name. Because I thought, and I read this before. I forgot this book. Like, I thought it was just going to be like V, very obscure. But it spelled out like his whole name.
I thought it was really sad that Hannah wasn't going to get any Christmas presents. And
I
was
know.
like, she go die.
I know. But like, Vicious has visions. And then she's had this, not a vision, but, she got talked through this Ouija board. And I thought it was just kind of like,
I assume it was a scribe virgin. I don't think we ever found. I don't know if we ever found out. I don't remember.
I mean, the Ouija boards are supposed to be controlled by like the spirits that are around you that know your randomness, or whatever. But I did like that. But this book got hard, Bridget. This book got hard.
Okay, so first of all, as we both have said, neither one of us remember this book.
Yeah,
not
at all.
So I was happy though about a few things. So I was happy that V and Butch, there was some closure on that. Because I felt like the last book, as you know, I was desperately hearting the throuple, but knowing that the throuple will never happen, I didn't want to spend the next 10 books with V pining over Butch.
Yeah.
So I was happy that sort of closed itself out, and that V tells Butch, like, I wanted to have sex with you, and Butch is like, I know.
Tells him.
And Butch is like, I know. Marissa knew too. Like, it's cool. Like, no worries.
I love that communication level.
Yeah. And V's like, oh, and he's like, it's okay if you're bisexual. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I always sort of assumed that you were. No biggie. And
also Jane, she was like, are y'all together? Like, is it?
She's like, I'm totally fine with
He's
it.
like, that's my best friend.
Yeah.
And
she's like, or your lover. Because y'all are cuddling in bed and glowing together.
You know what I'm saying?
Something's happening. But she's not mad at it.
She's
like,
mad at it.
I'm going to hop in there with you too. Throuple.
I mean, if it was
Throuple. And then the scene where Marissa like feeds him to help heal him. And she's like, let us care for you just this once. And I was like, my heart was just cracked open. And I was like, the feelings are feeling. Because I think it is so sweet that he's so, like, he keeps himself so removed.
Yeah.
Even though they're the closest people to him, he still keeps himself so removed from them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was beautiful because I feel like in a lot of cases, someone would be jealous of their partner having a friend who is that close, especially a friend who's clearly in love with them and wants them.
Yeah.
And she's like exactly the opposite. She's like, no, like, you keep him alive. You care for him. Like, you're basically like, you're ours. You're like our kid. You're like our friend. Let us like do this for you. And I thought that was a very sweet moment. Feels.
All the feels.
And also I was like kind of excited that Jane witnessed it. I thought that was nice. And then also that she like cash jerked him off while washing his body right after that. And I was like, I don't know what the proper response is, but I think that's it. Like if I saw this hot ass man and I had like given him open heart surgery, so now I feel a lot of ownership over his ability to be alive.
Yeah.
And then I realized he's another species. And then I saw him drink someone's blood and I got real aroused by it. And then he wanted me to cuddle him because he was feeling sad, feeling disconnected. And so then I cuddled his big, hot, sweaty muscles. And then I was like, let me wash you. And then I was like, there's a big boner. I'm going to touch it. That seems like reasonable.
All of that seems very reasonable.
I don't know what other thing could have happened.
No.
That's it.
That has to happen.
And then she jerks him to the point of completion. And I was like, well, you're not going to stop halfway.
Yeah.
You're not going to like wash his dick for like 5 seconds and then stop.
I love jerking a dick. So I thought I was a voyeur, but I'm not. I'm just an observer.
Okay.
Because I guess if you're a voyeur, you get like sexual gratification from watching people.
Right.
And that's not, for me, I'm just an information gatherer. I'm like, how do people do it? What
Right.
do you do? What do you use? What do you, whatever. And there's something so interesting to me about a penis. Like, the thing and the balls, when they shrink and come back together, like I could watch that all day. You know when you just like flick it a little and then watch them like,
or you give it one squeeze and the whole thing goes blue, blue.
Yeah, or whatever. And I'm like the closest thing we have on our bodies that do this are like our nipples. Like,
Yeah.
they do that same thing, but they're not big, so it's a very subtle action.
Yeah.
Guys, you can watch the whole thing like some mythical
Honestly,
creature.
It could go from like 4 inches to 7 inches in a hot second.
Like,
It's magic.
And then it goes from like being all soft and hidden inside its own little skin or whatever, if it's circumcised or not, to like coming out and blooming like a
literally
flower.
throbs.
It's like you can see like all the veins, and you can see, and you're like, wow, what is this creature? So like I love giving hand jobs because one, it's like I get to just watch it. I'm like, wow, what? And then two, it's like this other psychological element of like teasing the other person, getting them to a place, and then bringing them back, and then getting them a little further and bringing them back, and like controlling their body for that X amount of time. And like getting them to kind of play on your fiddle for like X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So like that hand job, I was like, oh yes, we're gonna do this hand job. Yes, Jane. Yes, Jane. Yes, Jane.
Okay, so speaking about their sex, because I think that this is one of the points of the book that I was sad about, is they talk so much about him and his kinks, and you get little visions.
Yes.
And then I don't feel like we really got.
It was vanilla.
It's so much. So we got the one scene of him working out the girl at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hells yeah. I was like, she's tied up. She's already like fucking wet. She's ready to go. He's like, I know where to start. And he like brings the candle wax over, and you're like, oh my God, it's happening. And then he literally never does anything else BDSM the rest of the time.
Yeah. The book was vanilla.
Like she does to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not a vanilla scene. But he never, and she keeps saying numerous times, like, Jane looks over at him and says no. And like, he's like, oh, I need to teach her like that disobeying has consequences and all this stuff. So I kept being like, yeah. teach her. She's willing. Do it. Yeah,
Where's your ruler?
Yeah.
Where's your ruler?
Where's your boundary? Let's find it. You know what I mean? And then it never happens. And I did not like that.
Super disappointing. I didn't remember this book, honestly. I read it.
I read it
twice.
way kinkier. Did you feel like when in your memory it was way kinkier?
No, so I didn't remember it, but I assumed from the previous books that it was kinky, and I was like, oh, I must have just forgot that it's kinky. And then when we got here, I was like, where is the kink? Where is all this shit talking he's doing? All this like stuff that's been building up, and I love the way he like like fucks with her in her dream. That scene to me, so visceral. I'm like, yes, and it gets you revved up for what they're going to do, and then they do.
I mean, the scene where he,
it's hot. They're hot,
it's
but
super
it's
hot.
not
Like the
kinky.
scene where he he's like, he tells her, I'm gonna like bend you over and I'm gonna lick you from behind, then I'm gonna fuck you till you can't walk. I was like, yes. And then afterwards, she's like, oh my God, that was amazing. I can't walk. That was the best sex I ever had. And he's all worried he like went too hard. And I'm like, you didn't even. I mean, obviously he's a vampire and he's fucking a human, so it's like that would be pushing the limits just generally. But I was disappointed because she was definitely aroused by the fact that he was into bondage and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then he never ties her up or never
once.
He never like plays with her. And I was so sad. What did you think about the fact that he essentially offered himself to her? In the play environment.
Oh, in the play environment. Oh, I actually thought it was kind of funny when she was like, I'm not really. And then she's like, oh, wait, I think he wants me to do him or whatever.
And then she was like, oh, yeah. Which I think maybe would be my response.
Yeah. I mean, I think at first I'd be like, and then like, ooh, let that shit settle in. But I really loved that he did that. Especially because it was like they were separating at that point. They were going to be going. She was like, I want us to bang our way like, you know, a goodbye fuck. She wanted a goodbye fuck, and he literally wanted a goodbye bang. But I thought it was like a really great way to show how special she was to him, because that's such a vulnerable position for him to put himself in, and knowing that like when he was a kid growing up, that if you like were vulnerable, you pretty much got like ass fucked. Like you lost the fight, you got ass fucked.
And the last time he got tied up, he got castrated.
Yeah,
with like no anesthesia and a dirty knife on a clay floor.
Yeah, so like, it was. I think it was a lot, and it was really telling that moment between them.
I agree. Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was beautiful. And I loved her response that she was like, what do all these things do? Like, I want to try all this shit on him. I was like, yeah. And then when she tells him, like, I'm going to come fuck you right now. And he's just like wildly orgasming because he's just like, she's amazing. But again, like, don't tease me with a good time and tell me that he's like, his, you know, eyes flared and then at the end of the book, it's all vanilla. He like tucks her into his arm like he's a regular old Joe. And I was like, motherfucker ain't regular.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like that. I docked a whole point from this book. A whole star from this book. Because I was just like, where is...
You made promises.
You made promises. I wanted the freaky sex. I wanted it freaky. So freaky.
Oh, man.
Okay, one of my other favorite characters had sex for the first time in this book.
Oh, okay. Talk about it.
Okay, so Quinn goes through his transition, and Blay has already gone through his transition in the last book. John Matthew still hadn't gone through it. And they all get together, and they're like, so what was the transition like? And he's like, forget that. I had sex. And they're like, what? he's like, and then he's like describing it. And he's like, it was so great. She was so wet. And I was deep in there. And he's like giving them the bit. And he's like, I wish you guys had been there. It was so, and they're like, why would we want to be there? And he asked Blay, and this is like the first tidbit. He's like, well, you like watching me fight, right? And Blay's like, yeah, because you're good at it. And he's like, this is the same thing. I'm good at fucking. And I was like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Foreshadowing.
Get it.
Smack it.
I love them so much.
Yes.
I love them so much. They are my favorite three characters in this entire series. I can't wait to get to their book. Yeah, they could have been a throuple too. Everyone could have been a throuple.
We are about this throuple life. I'm just saying. And even if you're not a throuple, let me just say, sometimes you want to have a little kinky thing with like 3 people, and then if you have a good go-to friend, you could bring in.
Actually, those 3 are the kinkiest of this whole series because they do in future books. Spoiler. In future books, they do a lot of fucking in front of each other and near each other. Yep. Sometimes one might argue with each other.
There's like one, I think, where they're like fucking looking each other dead in the eyes, like fucking other people, but looking at. Oh,
masturbated to that scene.
Oh my god! I know you did.
I know that
I'm not gonna say I did it.
It's the feels mixed with the sexiness, mixed with the public fucking, mixed with the like eye contact. I was like,
eye contact just fucking. When you're fucking someone and they got they're giving you full eye contact.
I will cry.
Yes, I will cry. If they're in your soul, oh my god!
Yeah.
If you have that kind of connection where you can look someone dead in the eye while they are fucking you, like don't give that connection up fast. Or they're a sociopath and you might have to give it up fast. But like if they're not, then there's something there because they just feel like they're all the way in your body. And I'm like, I am here for this.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Let them in your soul.
Amen.
Yes. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello, best friends. Thank you for being loyal listeners of Romance at a Glance. We're so happy to have you. If you'd like to support us further, head over to Patreon, where you can become one of our patrons. We've got a lot of great perks, such as merch and a super secret discussion group where Bridget and I talk to you directly about all things romance and all things nasty. So come on over. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, dear listeners. Now, we must talk about Fury. And let me tell you why. Because he is the other half of this book. Because next book is going to be his book. And so an enormous, I would argue, amount of time was spent on him. And it was a very sad time. It was a lot of sadness. Yeah. A lot of lusting after his twins' wife.
It's a lot of lusting after.
A lot of lust. And a lot of her, like, coming over and talking to him.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I was like, well, leave motherfucker.
I know.
To his sadness.
There was a couple times where I wanted to be like, get out of his face right now.
But also, I think honestly, I think she wrote it in too much. Like she was throwing it in our face as the readers, I felt like.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I was like, okay, enough. Like, we've had enough of these scenes. Like, we get it. Like, she is the one he wants to be with, and he can't because he wants his brother to be happy, and yada, yada, yada. And
I wonder, because they're
just like,
twins, like, is there a slight bond there because they're twins?
I mean,
that he would naturally be.
That's what they said in the last book.
Yeah.
Is that it would make sense that we would both bond with the same female. And I'm like, no, it wouldn't, because you're separate people. But I was like, okay. And then we find out later.
He can't really be bonded, though.
He's not bonded with her.
Because he would give her up to.
He's not bonded with her. Because he's not acting like a bonded male. Like, if he was really bonded, then every time Zadis kissed her or something, he would lose his mind and, like, beat her up.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the bonded males, anytime any male comes near them, they start getting real fucking territorial.
You know?
So no amount of red smoke would be able to keep him from her. So he's clearly not actually bonded with her. But I just felt like they were beating a dead horse. And I was just kind of like, I was happy that he sacrificed himself for Vicious and decided to become the prime male, because I was like, nothing. He needs a catalyst in his life to move him forward in the story. And right now, like, I'm just like, get it.
Sometimes he just needs something to do. You know, that person who keeps texting you all the time. And you're like, don't you have something to do with your life? That is Fury.
Yeah, he needs a purpose. He needs a purpose. His purpose was keeping Zadis alive.
Yeah.
And now that purpose has been transferred to Bella. And now he has no purpose anymore.
Now he's like an empty nester.
He is like an empty. That's such a good way to say it. Poor guy. Empty nester. All by himself.
All by himself.
All by myself. Don't want to be a tiny violin. No. And I thought it was really sad when he went and, like, had sex with a prostitute, but then didn't ejaculate. And I was like, well, that's just even sadder.
That is really sad.
And then he becomes the prime male, and you're like, okay, maybe he'll have some happiness. And then he goes up there. And Cormia is literally tied down with a gag in her mouth. And I was like, look, I always thought the directress was a bitch. This whole book. That lady is not nice.
Yeah, she's crazy.
Like, the way she explained sex to her, that it was going to hurt and be awful and she was never going to enjoy it. And I
Close your eyes and think of England.
And I'm like, you never had sex, directress. You've been up here by your goddamn self for 500 years.
Yeah.
You don't even know what you're talking about, part A. Part B, her education was lacking, because when Fury ejaculates, she thinks that she made him bleed.
Yes.
And he's like, it's not blood. Sorry about that. And
that was a funny scene.
The director shoots Vicious at the beginning of the book. She's the one who shot him, we find out. And I was pretty excited when Fury figured it out and then demotes her.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you deserve this.
But also, like, why didn't the scribe Virgin know?
Because she doesn't get involved in that shit. Because she's like fucking higher being.
I see.
Honestly, like, the directress runs the Chosen. I don't think the Scribe Virgin really has anything to do with them.
Because of Vicious, though. I thought the Scribe Virgin, she's always peeking in on Vicious.
I see what you're saying.
And always, like, watching him, and everything happens,
That's
and
fair.
there's 1,000 daggers to her heart. So I was a little bit kind of like, how do you not know, like, the person who's working in your thing is shooting your son? Like, that was one of those, like, okay, I'll suspend disbelief, but I kind of feel like she should have known. You should have known.
I honestly didn't even think about that. But she told him that he was the prime male after that.
Yeah.
Because it was his birthday. And she was not allowed to interfere for 300 years. So maybe that's why.
Maybe.
Because that was like the deal she made with the blood letter. So maybe that's why.
Oh, okay. That could be.
I'll
buy that.
I'll buy it?
I'll buy it.
All right. I was selling a good thing.
I'll pick up what you're putting down.
Picking it up? All right. I'm putting it down. Okay. So the directress is terrible. Cormia, I feel like at the moment, I don't really have a good feeling on her either way, because I'm kind of like, I like that she wanted to be an individual, and clearly she was brought up in a very literal white world where there's no color, there's nothing happening. And I think I'm going to like her, but at the moment I do not know enough about her to like her.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, she gets a whole book, I think the next one or
The next
whatever.
one.
So I'm assuming that we're going to be made to like her.
Yeah.
But right now, to me, I'm like, it's Fury. She needs to be taken care of, which I think is great because Fury is a caretaker. And she's like an Amish, Rumspringa kid.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I think that her innocence, I think, will do really well with his innocence.
Yeah.
Because he also is inexperienced in love and also physical intimacy. And so I think that could be a good match.
I'm a little bit not looking forward to the miscommunications that are going to happen.
Because she's a chosen?
Because she's a chosen, because she doesn't understand things, because he's trying to work around like her things, and he, you know, he's not the most direct of brothers. And I don't generally like books that are centered around miscommunications, like mass amounts of miscommunications. So since I don't remember that book either, I don't know. Every time I read this book, it's like the first time. I think this is going to be the time that I actually remember what happens in the different books. Honestly, because we've gone through so much detail.
Oh, I agree. I was going to say, honestly, I don't remember anything that happens in Fury's book. I actually remember 2 things, but I'm not going to say them because I'm going to hold on to them and see if I was right because I haven't read it yet.
I didn't even remember Cormia. Like
I did not remember her name.
Yeah. And like, I was like, who?
Which kind of doesn't bode well. But I also, for this book, liked this book more the first time I read it than this time.
The first time around you read it?
Yeah, because remember when we were going through it and we started reading these books and we were both like, ooh, so excited for Zeta's book, which totally hit the spot.
Yeah.
And we were super excited for Vicious's book, did not hit the spot for me.
See,
in the same way that I thought it would.
I feel the exact same way, and I thought you were going to feel differently. I thought we were going to disagree on this, but we are like totally on the same page. I'm like, I was ready for this book. I was like, where's the kink? Where's this? Where's that? And then nothing. It was like crickets for me. And I was like,
yeah, we only get 1 encounter or 2 encounters that are BDSM.
Honestly,
and that's it.
Yeah. And this book felt like a building book too. Like it didn't feel like for me, a standalone book. I was so much more interested in John Matthew meeting Zex for the first time in this book. You know, and their little interaction.
Sad for him.
So sad
John
for him.
Matthew.
when he his transition and when he tries to actually
I was just sad when he met her and he like thinks she's so hot and badass and then she's like, what are you, a coward? And he literally can't talk and like defend himself and he just feels so small.
Him not being able to talk, there's like when he keeps trying to get back to Zex when his brothers are like in trouble with the lessers and he's like trying to talk to the bouncer and the bouncer's like, get out of here, get out of here, what are you doing? Like,
and then he goes and he like fucking badass kills both those lessers and I was like, John Matthew gonna be a badass. I was so excited.
It was like the setup. You're like, it's starting to happen, and I'm like, how many books do I have to wait for John Matthew? And
then when he goes back to the club and she's like, I see that you've, you know, outgrown your old shape, and he's like, he has a huge hard on under the table and he's so embarrassed and he's like blushing and he hopes that she doesn't know that he jacked off to her earlier that day, and I was like, oh my god, I love you so cute. I love him.
I love him. His book, I remember their book being satisfying.
I do too. If their book isn't satisfying upon second reading, I'm going to flip out.
I'm going to flip my shit.
I just want all of you dear listeners to know that this podcast is going to get real with me shouting things. And Shawnee's going to have to turn down the volume.
You do not want Bridget
shouting. I'm going to lean back. I talk loud anyways. I want everyone to know that Shawnee does a wonderful job of mixing this, as does Brendan, her dear partner who helps us. And my volume is like 15 points lower than hers, I think.
Yeah, you're at least 10 decibels.
Yeah, because I talk really, really loud. So if you ever come see us in real life at an event that we're having, just be prepared because I talk loud.
The only difference between us is that she's the boisterous one. You won't be able to tell us apart. We're twinsies.
That's the only difference.
It's the only difference.
The only one. I can't think of one other difference.
Not one.
So funny. Okay, the other thing relating to John Matthew I want to talk about real quickly is that he goes through his transition. Hooray! And he becomes a fucking monster. Yes. So they talk about how like Quinn and Blay, when they see him, they're like, damn, you're a huge motherfucker. You're as big as a brother. Like, and they talk about how big he is. So that really puts into perspective his Black Dagger Brotherhood sort of stock that he comes from. Yes.
Which made me happy when he transitioned too, because they kept playing at him, at Lash, like attacking him. And I couldn't remember if Lash attacked him or not.
Okay, I thought Lash tried to rape him. In my memory, I remember that happening.
I just remember him trying to like get him in the bathroom or something. Yeah.
I think maybe that happens. In future books? Or do you think it was the scene where he beat him up and we just remember because he had been assaulted at some point?
Yeah, maybe we just put the memories together.
I think maybe.
But I don't know. I'm open. I don't remember shit. Yeah. But yeah, like when he beat him up, that was badass in the last book. But this one, you know, Lash kept trying to like subtly threaten him, and Quinn and Blaylock were like had to hover and be there. But now John Matthew's big, and Bridget, first, let me just take a pause right now. What is more beautiful than a man who is big and like can carry you and throw you around and do all those things, and he doesn't speak. Not one goddamn word.
I wouldn't want that though. You know, I like the dirty talk. I could not handle the no talking. I mean, I could because he can communicate. Obviously, he can sign to me, and I would learn sign language, and then we would communicate that way.
Yeah.
But if I didn't know sign language, that would be a problem for me.
Let me tell you right now, guys that are have to compensate for something, it's worth it. Like, you never want somebody who's got the whole package. You want somebody who's always trying to overcome.
I also think it's good to be with someone who was not good looking as a child.
Yes.
Because they are happy to be with you. If they were like always hot as a child and as a teenager and could get whoever they wanted to, they don't work as hard at keeping you happy or keeping you or pleasuring you. And I think someone who, whether or not I guess they were aesthetically attractive, did not necessarily feel that. And so now that you give them that feeling of being attractive, and then they want to like work hard on you. And I like when people work hard on me. With the O's.
I love the smile you're giving me right now. Face.
I mean, one O is like barely trying. Like, did we even have a session?
You want them to just be like, ooh.
I want to be like,
you nasty.
I am nasty sometimes. Speaking of sadness, though,
yes.
Along with the nasty. So John Matthew goes through his transition. Layla gives him the blood. I did think it was a little bit weird. It was like Mom and Dad watching you get your first boner when Wrath and Beth were there. And I get that they were there because it's very dangerous and you could die.
Yeah.
And he is their blood. But I also was like, and then Wrath's like, ha ha ha, you're gonna fuck that lady now. We're gonna go. And Beth's like, I'm so proud of you, and comes over and kisses him while he has like this boner. And I was like, leave him alone, Mom and Dad. You're so embarrassing. That's all. I was so embarrassed for him. And then Layla is like so beautiful and is like, I'm happy to serve you. And I'm like, bitch, you need a goal. She keeps trying to fuck all these brothers, and she gets so sad.
Yeah.
And then she tells Corbia, she's like, there's nothing worse than like not being wanted for your body. And I was like, yes, there are so many things that are worse than that. You need some perspective on your life. What is happening to these poor chosen?
I think one of the like more the things where I was like, ooh, like cringing was like the fact that Layla has to check in and basically tell them like, she tells Wrath and them that, nothing happened.
Yeah, we didn't have sex. He didn't want me. Can you imagine how embarrassed she felt too? Because she feels like it's her fault.
She was like, she was so sad. Like her talk, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like you've won as a chosen. You've got like one or two jobs for your whole life, like, and that's feed them.
They've been doing nothing for hundreds of years.
Yes.
So it's like she's been bored, and now she's like, someone put it in me. I've been waiting.
And it's also, it's like, you know, you're waiting and you're up to the bat now, you know, and you're ready to hit your home run, and they keep sending foul balls at you, and you're just like, look, I just need to hit somebody's balls. You know what I'm saying? And I'd have to imagine, right? Like if I were chosen and I was stuck there and I had to be there, I would probably want a baby, because I need a purpose for my life, and not sitting around just waiting to feed or to do whatever. I agree. It's not a purpose. So if those are my only options, then I'm like, I need to sex one of these fools up because I want a baby. Put a baby in me now.
Yeah, I'm bored and I need something to do.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I can imagine also that is like, it's not just your duty, but you're like, ooh, if I do this, I get a perk for myself.
And you've been raised to believe that this is your purpose.
Yeah.
So that's all you know. There's literally nothing else to do up there.
No. And if you have a baby and that baby becomes really strong and part of the brotherhood, that's also like a legacy for you. You become like the mother of, you know, this strong, you know, whatever, who's adding to the value of the brotherhood. Yeah. And I think so, like, being rejected sexually, I think, is at the heart of all of your hopes and dreams, really.
I agree.
You know, and that sucks.
Yeah, I did think it led to a really beautiful scene with Zadist and John Matthew. So Zadist finds out that John Matthew didn't have sex with her, and so he looks in his medical file to make sure that nothing is basically wrong with him physically, and finds out that John Matthew is raped because it's in his psych profile, and tells John Matthew that he knows and that no one else will ever know, and he will burn up his record if anyone ever asks for it, and he'll never share it. And I thought it was just so lovely because John Matthew asked, like, do you think less of me? And he's like, no, it was not your fault. It's never your fault. Like, no one should have their innocence raped from them. And I was like, and now say, I too was like you.
Yeah.
Because
I thought he
then
was
the
gonna say
next
it
thought
too.
John Matthew has is like, Zetas, Zetas would never have let it happen. Like, he's such a man. And I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity for you to have put all of his fears to rest by not just saying, like, I know and I'm not ashamed of you and it's not your fault, but also it happened to me too. And you think that I'm this strong, wonderful dude. And it could happen. I mean, it can happen to anyone, literally.
Yeah.
And it happened to him after he went through his transition when he was already big and strong. And that I felt like, I was like, Z, I mean, it was a very nice moment, but also like, he needs to know that other people who are vampire males have had this happen to them.
Yeah, I thought he was going to tell him too. And then, I mean, he didn't. I was like,
But also, I was happy that he talked to him. I also thought he was like, look, you don't have to have sex with anyone. He's like, but you have to masturbate because I just have to know that it worked.
Yeah.
If you never say anything again, I'll assume it worked. And if it didn't work, then you and me can talk about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll never talk about this again. And I was like, that is so, I feel like, not about masturbating necessarily, but I feel like that's such a good thing that I would want to use with my own kids.
Yeah.
Of like, I just want you to, like, try this thing out, like, try this food, try this whatever, like, put on this outfit I want you to wear. I don't care. If it works, we'll never speak of it again. And if it doesn't work, then let's, figure out why. If you're angry about something, that's great. Like, but here's what's happening. So we never have to speak about it again if you don't want to. But we could if you want to. I thought that was actually, I was like, you're going to be a good dad, Zadist. You're going to be a good dad. But also tell him so that he knows that he has a friend.
Yeah. Masturbate. So you know it works.
But also masturbate. And then he masturbates and thinks of Zax. And I was like, dun, 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 dun,
it works.
It works. It works. It works.
Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it.
Okay. So.
Yeah. Okay. But can we talk about Quinn's eyes for a minute here?
Please.
Because this is where I got this information. I remembered that later on he didn't have a good relationship with his family. Mm-hmm. And then they went into it in this book about how his eyes are different colors and that's a defect. It doesn't actually mean anything other than it's a defect. Mm-hmm. And it literally cancels out like his whole lineage for his family, the fact that he has this defect. Mm-hmm. I thought this was crazy. And I also thought it was really sweet. For me, it was a sweet moment when like Blaze like, yeah, he has a room here. I know he's going to be too proud to like take the room, but he already has a room like that I prepared for him and stuff. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, you guys.
Yes. Okay, first of all, I think the mismatched eye thing is super dope and they should embrace that. But the Glimera, as we've noted from Marissa's book and everyone else's books, are a bunch of vain old motherfuckers and they suck. So it kind of didn't make me... And I actually remembered that was the reason that they didn't like him, weirdly. Maybe because his book finally comes last, so probably they like maybe talk again about it or something like that. I do love Blay and Quinn's relationship as friends, and then in the future, spoilers, as more. I was very touched always by them and how Blay, is like willing to protect Quinn's dignity until John Matthew's like, don't leave me on the outside. Like, I'm your friend. And it does come back a lot. I also think it's really sad that Blay and Quinn are just like very factual. Like, oh yeah, his family's going to kick him out soon.
Yeah.
Because he went through the change and they were hoping that he was going to it was going to fix it and it didn't. So they're just going to kick him out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's still the son of one of the Glimera like leader people. I think it's crazy.
I think it's crazy too. And I think he's their only son.
No, he has a brother.
Oh, he has a brother. Oh, he doesn't have a sister?
No, remember his brother's the one who like beats him up.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No, you're right. You're right.
I don't know if I don't remember if he has a sister or not.
You're right. I might be mixing him up.
Yeah. But he does have a brother.
But
it was also kind of sad because his first sexual experience, she had to like sneak back down the hall because she wanted to have sex with him. And Blade's like, are you going to mate her? And he's like, fuck no.
He's like, that's not our arrangement.
Deep up in that.
I like though that he thought like, okay, she's coming, and then so much time passed. He was like, oh, she's not coming, and then he goes to the bathroom and he comes back out, and then like she's there just naked. Yeah. That's how you always want to find him. Just you want to come back and they're naked, like, hey, let's get up in this.
Do you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
No.
They had a thing called The Naked Man. You just like show up naked. And it was like this guy was like, yeah, it works like 50% of the time, every time, or something like that. So then in the future, the other characters do it like to each other.
Yeah.
Like, naked man? Like, I thought it might work. So funny. Because it's not like pushy at all. Like, he's not creepy about it. He's just like, naked man.
Naked man.
So funny. Okay, now we do have to talk about the crux of Jane dying.
Okay.
And the things that happen thereafter.
Okay.
Okay, so Jane gets shot. She knows she's going to die.
In like 2 minutes.
Because she's so smart.
Yeah.
And she's like, it hit whatever artery, I'm dying. And he's like, I'll get you help. And she's like, it's too late. So she dies. V loses his mind.
So sad.
So sad.
So sad.
It was sad.
When he's driving in the car with like, he's like, oh, she's not here. It's just her corpse.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
I know. I was devastated. And then he's like, I'm going to buckle her in and crash into this tree. And I was like, what is going on? So he crashes in the tree, takes her corpse with him into the Brotherhood's chambers where they keep all the lesser jars. And I was like, nah,
not today, Satan.
Do it. And then he's like, and my hand is electricity. And I was like, you can't shock a dead person alive. Nope. She did. She gone. And then you see like, flash to like Jane's point of view. And she's like waiting around. And Hannah's like, you have to let go so that you can go to heaven, basically. And she's like, how can I let him go? And then she's like, I'm dead. Whatever. I'll let him go. Yeah. I was like, okay. So she lets go, goes to heaven, or what we would consider as like the white light heaven.
Yeah.
And V literally is getting like black lesser blood to pour into her chest cavity.
Yeah, he gets like a lesser heart.
Yeah, he's gonna like basically like shock her alive with some of the omega.
Yeah.
And the scribe virgin shows up and is like, what the fuck, no?
She's like, what the hell? And
she'll come back evil. You don't know what you're doing.
But there was like,
I don't care. I could fix her the way I fixed Butch. Yeah. And I was like,
he was like, I was like, he'd have to be like her human dialysis. That's what he thinks he's gonna have to do. Like heal her every day and like cleanse her every day. And he's willing to do this though. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, this is.
I thought it was crazy. It was crazy.
It was crazy.
It was fucking nuts. Yeah. But also, I was like, I can see where he would think that it would work.
Yeah, but when I mean, I could see how, like, in a crazy moment, he might think this could possibly maybe have 2% chance of working.
Right.
But the moment where the scribe virgin turns her into, like, dust.
Oh. And then Butch touches her and she, like, blows away. Yes. I was like, she gone.
That's how I felt. I was like, she gone.
Oh, no.
I mean, she gone.
She's for real.
She ain't just gone. She gone.
Can't even bring that body. The body gone. And I was like, well, that was cold-blooded because now they can't even do a fade ceremony for her.
Yeah.
And then she just fucking shows back up.
Yeah.
As a ghost. I don't know.
And then that's
how did you think about that?
So, one, I don't like things like that when they happen in books. If she was gone, gone. Right. And so they tried to make it seem like the scribe virgin did the whole motherly thing and sacrificed all her birds so that she could bring Jane back. But they never explained the dynamic of that.
Yeah,
how that works out.
And they literally say, like, Jane's like, I don't really understand how it works. And I'm like, Jane, you're a scientist and a doctor. Her character not being like, no, you need to explain this to me or I can't be it. She's just like, whatever. I'm here. And like, I can touch you and I can touch things when I think about them.
Yeah. Like,
I can eat food if I want,
to
but
me,
I don't have to.
That whole God thing where it's just like, oh, God, like, you can fix anything with God later. Right. I don't like that. I think that if they wanted Jane to still be in the book, she should not have died. Yeah. Like, she couldn't have been turned to dust and then brought back. And I don't think the scribe virgin's birds, sacrificing her love for her birds, is equivalent to bringing a human life back.
I agree. I mean, I guess I like that there at least was some sort of sacrifice and that it wasn't just like, I snap my fingers and everything's fine again. And I liked the scene where Vicious brings her a bird.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice. And where he says, like, I'll have to bring many more. And he's like, just tell her it's from Vicious. And then she's like, I'll tell her it's from her son. Like, who else would have done something so nice? And I'm like, anyone who had their beloved restored.
Yeah. And he's like, no, say it's from Vicious.
Just say it's from Vicious.
And then he later asked to be like completely renounced as her son. Uh-huh. Like, you know, he was like, can you do me one more favor? Yeah. And she already knew. He doesn't even say it. She's like, I renounce you as my son. You're free. Like.
Right. And I didn't understand that part because I was like, what's the point? Like, you don't have to be the primale. Like, you're still her son, whether she renounces you or not. Like, I didn't understand. I thought the next favor was going to be related to Jane.
I did too.
Like,
I was like, you used your favor on that?
Can you mate us? Like, I thought that was going to be the favor was like, will you accept us as mates or whatever?
Yeah.
Because he says earlier in the book, like, we could never be mated properly because the scribe virgin won't stand for our mating. but they don't ever say why she wouldn't. And also,
no, they do. She's human. She's fully
now
human.
she's like a ghost.
Yeah.
Because does he ever get her name carved in his back?
No, that never happens. He says he can't meet her because she's human.
But what about in the future books? Like, he never.
I don't know what happens in the future. Couldn't even remember this book, Bridget.
Okay.
We have to read it. We're going to have to keep
okay,
reading.
We'll keep reading. We'll find out.
But like, it doesn't. I mean, I know that he couldn't because she was human. But now that she's a ghost, I mean, that's a whole new. How is brotherhood and ghosts? What's that kind of thing? Is there a?
I guess it's a good thing she never wanted to have a kid because it's hard to put a baby in a ghost.
I mean,
so I've heard.
I just imagine. Okay, I don't know if
like
the
jizz, like
the
when
jizz squirting through.
Fucking.
I just, or if she's kind of like bubble wrap, or he jizzes in her and he can see it hit her skin on all sides. Like, I had this very real thought. She's not
translucent when she's with him, because anytime she's with him, she's fully
okay. Because I just thought she could touch him and he could touch her, but like other people couldn't necessarily touch her, or if she really thought about it, she could touch it, but she was still kind of see through.
No, she's like, when she's with him, she's fully. She looks like normal, and then when she's not thinking about it, she's kind of see through, and then
the fact that she's
but they
a
say
ghost,
like, well, it doesn't even make sense because I remember in future books she has to like sleep and stuff, and I'm like, but she's a ghost, so why is she sleeping and eating? This seems
well, she said she doesn't have to eat, but she can eat. Was one of the things she said. But like, I don't know, as crazy as this book is, like as supernatural as this whole series is,
right?
Like the addition of a ghost makes it crazy to me.
I agree.
Like, even though it's already
vampires
crazy.
are another species, and I'm okay with that. The ghost thing,
I was like, that's when a soap opera has run out of storylines.
Yeah, I'm like, why can't she just drink his blood?
Yeah, why couldn't he have turned her without permission? Or whatever, and that
he does say that you can't turn people. To Butch, you can't turn people. That's a myth.
Oh.
But he did say there's other ways, because Marissa says something, I think, about there being other ways to, like, just for longevity.
Yeah.
So she could drink his blood, which would make her life, maybe she wouldn't live 500 years, but she could live 200 or whatever, because she's drinking his blood.
Because my thing is, I was like, okay, if she's bleeding out, she's like, I have 2 minutes. You hit my artery, I'm bleeding out. I was just thinking, give her some blood.
Yeah.
Because one, I think that's
super strong. It would help her heal.
Yeah, it'll help her start healing.
Right.
Or whatever. And then I was like, give her your wrist while you're driving, and then like drive like hell to wherever you need to be. Because I guess you can't like poof her. You can't poof her somewhere else or whatever. But like, I was like, I don't know. I thought that would have been a better option.
I agree. I didn't love like the ghost thing. I mean, I thought the revelation of the mom, I thought the bird thing was sweet. I thought the revelation of Pain being kidnapped and stored by her mother and her being like, maybe I should let her go. I thought was fucking nuts, but also interesting. So I was like, ooh, twin of Vicious. That's an interesting lady. I'm intrigued by her. Like, what's she got going on? And now, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's it. I mean, the next book we got Cormia and Fury. So I guess we'll see how that goes.
So I would like to know from the listeners, hit us up on Instagram, because I want to know if you were okay with this ghost thing happening. Mm-hmm. And I want to know why. Like, if you like this ghost storyline, tell me why. And tell me if you thought it was plausible or not as plausible.
Yeah.
In a completely implausible situation. But but I want to know.
Yeah, let us know. Well, what did you think about Jane? I mean, not about her becoming a ghost, which wasn't her choice, but just about her character in general.
So I gave her 4 peaches. Mm-hmm. I liked her a lot. I thought that she kind of kept her own agency, and she was a really strong character who kind of knew what she wanted and that sort of thing. And even when things were getting kind of crazy, I actually followed her rationale to, like, because she got together with him very, very quickly. He kidnapped her and stuff, but she fought pretty good. And then finally when he was explaining things and he was like, wait, he did try to protect me, even though they kidnapped me, he definitely tried to protect me from anybody else who came or whatever. So she's like, so he can't be completely bad. And so that, like,
and she kept like spelling out Stockholm syndrome in her mind.
That
was hysterical.
You
have Stockholm syndrome.
I liked it because it's like, it's kind of what I would have said, so I did enjoy her, and I gave her 4.
I give her 5. Same reasons. I really liked her. I thought she was strong. I thought she was funny. I liked that once they started with the sexy times, she was like oh fuck yes, like I've made this choice, now let's do it. Like she like lays on the bed and like opens up her legs and is like, does it look like I'm saying no? And I'm like, get it, girl.
Get it.
And then later when she's like, I don't know if I want to whip you. Yeah, I can do that. Yep, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hop on that D too. I'm gonna fuck you till you die. And I was like, you're a girl after my own heart. I also like how smart she was.
Kindred spirits.
I thought that it was cool that, you know, her dream is to run her own department, and then she realized, like, her priority shifted, but she still realized, oh, if I'm like the Brotherhood's private doctor, I'm gonna run this show. I'm gonna be able to get whatever equipment I want, and I can study the genetics, and I love that. And I'm like, so I liked that she chose, and he wasn't like, maybe you could be with us.
Yeah.
I like that she was like, one day was enough away from him. I don't want to do that. This is the better course of action. And she was just like, we're gonna do this. So I liked her. 5 stars. What about Vicious? What'd you say?
I gave Vicious a 3.
Oof, I knew.
Mostly because like because of how the book was not at all kinky. I was like, oh, are you all talk and no game? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's kind of that's a big reason why I gave Vicious a 3. And then there was just, I don't know. He's not as my favorite as I had hoped in his book. I loved him so much more in other people's books than his own. So, yeah.
I actually agree. I loved him in the other books.
I really didn't think we were going to agree here.
Excited. Okay, let me read you what I wrote, because I feel like I remember this book being way more filled with sex the first time. I do not like that she fixes him from all his past shit so fucking fast, and that all of his like feelings for Butch go away. I was actually kind of okay with that, because he actually says like it makes sense because it was the first time you ever cared about anyone, and so it makes sense that you transferred all of that into like sex, because you're like, this is the first time you ever loved anyone else, basically. And so I was like, okay, like I was okay with that storyline kind of coming to a nice close. But I didn't love that he didn't like need to tie her up, because he talks about like needing that and loving to have sex that way. He's like, I don't even know if I'll be able to have vanilla sex. And then he just has like vanilla sex the rest of the time. And I'm like, well, clearly it's fine. But also, just because you can have vanilla sex doesn't mean that you don't still want to tie somebody up and take them to their limit. Yeah. That's what he really liked. Now, had he like tied her up but not covered her face, like that's what I thought was going to happen, was that he was going to like tie her up and do this whole session. But unlike all the other people where he always covered their face, never wanted to see them, he was going to have her uncovered with no gag so that he could see her and talk to her and like was in it with her, versus the other ones where it was like a release for him and he didn't care who it was with. I thought it was going to be more of like a together thing. Yeah. Very, very fucking sad it never happened. And he, especially because again, they kept saying like he was pulsing at her disobedience. And I'm like, and then you never, and she knew and she like stared back. And I was like, fuck yeah. And then nothing.
I feel like in kink, if you're a dom and someone like she's staring back, you know, so she's playing like that brat role, the whole fun in that is the punishment.
Is getting caught.
Yes. Like
she's wanting to
get caught. She wants to get caught.
Yeah.
And and he did not deliver for me. And I was like,
oh, so fucking wow. Sad. Brought this whole book to a 4 for me.
Yeah.
Like if you had told me ahead of time, I would have been, this is a 5-star book. But it brought it to a 4 for me.
Yeah. Maybe we had too much expectations, Bridget.
I don't think so. I honestly think I read this book the first time when I was like 16.
Yeah.
And
so it was hotter than we had ever read.
And also I only remembered probably the scenes where he's like tying fools up, because those like stand out in your mind. Yeah. Like I didn't really remember the whole rest of the story. I mean, I know that Jane ended up a ghost, but like I don't really remember how we got there. I think those 2 scenes just stood out more in my memory.
Yeah, I understand.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Especially when you're 16. I mean, the first book I read, I reread. Like, so I read this book when I was, 14 or 15. And it was so hot. I was like, oh my God, this is the hottest book I've ever read in my whole life. I went back and read it. It is so tame. It is like the tamest book I've ever read. But it was like the first. Sure. So
it's the first time you ever read about like people fingering and kissing and titty grabbing and dicks and vaginas, and you're like,
so fuck. So in my mind, sexually, the feeling is like a 10, right? Yeah. You know, and a book that's like probably 100 times steamier is at a 5 because of just in relation to what you know and what you've already experienced at that point. Sure. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think I already know your answer, but McDreamy to McSteamy. What do you got?
So even though this book was vanilla to me, I thought this book was very vanilla. I gave it McSteamy because when he was in her mind, giving her that fantasy. Oh man, when I tell you, I might have masturbated to that scene many times. I remember, like, that's probably one of the few things I kind of remembered about this book was that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But when that happened, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
yes.
yeah, again.
And more. And yes.
Did not fulfill on the kink, but the scenes that they had together were hot as fuck.
Yeah.
Like when he's like talking to her and like, I'm going to lean you over. I was like, And then when he's like, don't come, you come when I say, I was like, what's happening? I like it. So anyways, I thought this book was kinky, BDSM, and vanilla. Like it had all three types of sex in it. Not as much BDSM as I want, but it did have some.
Yeah. Not, I don't think, I mean, it was like.
It did.
For me.
It had 2 full scenes.
Okay, fine. But not like where Jane was like dominated.
No.
And what I feel like we were
Yes.
promised
Right.
as readers.
I agree.
I don't think that happened.
I agree. What was your favorite line in the book? What do you got?
I got 2. My first one is.
Look at Shawnee
I
joining
know.
the 2 quote club.
I know. Well, because they were short, so I was like, okay. So one was, when I want you to beg, I'll tell you.
Ooh.
Vicious.
Yes. And again, but it didn't happen.
No, it didn't.
I wanted him to make her beg.
Tell me.
Make her beg.
Tell me.
Make her beg. Make her beg for that. Oh, make her beg. Make her beg. Make her beg.
What you got? What do you got?
The rack was covered with hardened wax, blood, her arousal, and the results of his orgasms. It had been a messy session, but the acceptable ones always were. I was like, this book is gonna be fire. This book is gonna be fire. And then we never got any more.
And then the fire died. The other one was terrific. A bisexual dominant vampire with kidnapping expertise.
I really liked that one too. I almost chose that one. That's a good one.
That was a solid one.
Okay, my second one was screw the change. I got laid as Blake and John both bug-eyed. Quinn chuckled. Yeah, I did. Got my cherry popped, so to speak. Get the fuck out, Blake breathe. And I was like, Blake breathe, because Blake's all about to come, because he's in love with Quinn. Foreshadowing. I am excited. Because at this point, you don't know that Blake's in love with Quinn yet.
No.
But there's so many like little teeny, like not even like nuggets, but like if you look at them again, now knowing where it's going to go, I'm like, oh yeah, Blaze like turned on by this. Not because of the thought of sex with a girl, but because of the thought of Quinn fucking.
Yeah.
And then when Quinn, right after that, it's like, you want to watch me because I'm good. I was like, yes, I do. I want to watch people. I think it's serious. I had a friend once. And unfortunately we grew apart because she moved away, but we used to have like the best time talking about sex, and she had a threesome and she's telling me all about it. And we were eating dinner together. And I was like, I mean, the way that I am on this podcast, I was like, tell me more. Okay, then what happened? Then what happened? Who was where? What was happening? Whose penis was where? What was going on? What part did you like? What part did you not like? And she's like, you know what? The whole time I kept thinking, I wish Bridget was here. Not to participate, just because I feel like he would have just like really enjoyed it and we could have had this moment. And I was like, that would have been so nice.
See, that's how I feel, and I can never express that to people, right? Like,
just like we could have been looking, and you could have been like, maybe like dictating what was happening, and I was like, that would have been lovely. I would be happy.
You would have directed the scene. You would have directed. You'd be like, okay, but if you put your foot here, you guys can make this really work out. Like,
I would have been like, go over there, crawl over there.
It's crazy because like it sounds creepy, but if you know, you're like, oh no, it would be perfect.
It would have been so. Honestly, it would have been, and also she was like gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the two dudes, because I saw pictures of them naked and clothed, were fucking hot. And I was like, this would have been such a wonderful experience for us all. It would have been great.
You know, it's interesting because like
I don't know how my husband would have felt. We weren't married at the time, but I don't know that he would have approved of me like going to a hotel room and watching a friend of mine have sex with two people. But
I kind of feel like if he's your husband, like now, like I feel like there's certain things you got to know about the person you're with, and you accept it. Like if that had happened,
I think if I wasn't participating, he'd be fine with it.
Yeah, like you just got to be like, hey, I'm that kind of person who'll watch somebody have sex and direct them. That's that's part of who I am.
Yeah, I don't at this point like. Honestly, if we were friends still, maybe it would happen. But I don't know. Like I feel like that was like such a very unique and interesting friendship.
Yeah,
that. I feel like I've had a few times in my life where we just like totally are on the same wavelength with that stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people, like you said, just would think that's weird.
Yeah.
And I think it would be difficult to find someone who didn't want me to participate, but wanted me to be there.
Yeah.
But like that I also wanted to be involved, and that we would have like because it's really about the like connection at that point. Because you're like basically like helping that person have the best time that they can. Is how I would think of it. Like you're supporting them with joy, but not in like the porn way where you're like,
put it in her mouth.
Come on, girl. Like, and you're like literally touching and I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like in porn it's like very. Well, like weirdly, like you can do better than that. I don't know. It feels very weird.
It feels very contrived, but like so
contrived. That's a good word.
in my kink support group one day, I said like, I was like, look, this is gonna sound weird, but I just want to watch people do like kinky things. I'm like, is it a thing where I can ask somebody like, can I sit in the corner with my notebook and watch you guys play or do your scene or fuck or whatever you're gonna do? Because I'm so new to kink that I just don't know what the possibilities are.
Sure.
So I'm sure
a lot of people would be open to that.
Well, I thought I was gonna be met with like, girl, that's like that's weird. Not a lot of people do that. People were like, hey, if we do a scene, we'll invite you over. Hey, we'll do a scene, we'll invite you over. Whatever. So I watch. So friends of ours who have kind of become our good friends in the scene, they invited us to watch like a caning scene. And it is so incredibly like intimate to like watch.
Come to one?
Oh my God, Bridget. I mean, we have to do this.
Okay. I'm so excited. Like, you guys, if you could see my face right now, we'll post a photo on Instagram, but I'm so excited.
Like afterwards, he said to me like, I thought it would be too much because a caning scene is somebody getting beat up with a cane, right? But it's so amazingly beautiful because
I would imagine the sounds.
The sounds, but also there's a love connection happening at the same time. He's not just like beating the shit out of her. He's like rubbing her, caressing her, kissing her, beating her, rubbing, caressing, kissing, beating, loving, soothing, caressing, beating, and these intervals, whatever. And he's taking the time.
The build up.
Yeah, he's taking the time. Like he's a very precise person.
He's not trying to hurt her.
No, right. and she loves being hurt that way, or being pain registers differently for her. So for her, this is a lovey.
Well, he's trying to give her pain, but he's not trying to hurt her.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I was trying to distinct.
But yes.
Like, he's not trying to injure her.
He's not trying to injure her.
He's trying to give her that pain because she enjoys it.
But like he knows exactly how long it takes for like her serotonin to get to where it needs to be. So what impact will be the best at that point? I mean, he's done a lot of research to be safe for her for this thing. And afterwards, I was just like, whoa.
That's cool.
And he was like, I thought
Were you at their house?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then afterwards, he asked us questions, and I got to ask questions about it. And I was like, what's this and what's that and whatever. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. I need to do this again.
Cool. Okay, yeah.
I want to see more. I want to see more people.
I want to see more people. I'm so into that. I read this romance novel once, and I am going to have to do some research and figure out the name because it was years ago. But they went to this club and they watched two people have sex like through the glass. And it was like one of those clubs where people are having sex.
I've read a couple books like that, yeah.
And in one of the things, then they were he was asking her like, do you want to be the person who gets watched? And she was like, and then they were the people that everyone else was like watching.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I don't want them to like participate. And he's like, no, they just like, does it turn you on to be watched? And she was like, yeah. And I was just like, I don't remember what book it was, but I just remember being like, I am so turned on while reading. Also, on a side note of being turned on while reading, one of my favorite things about reading is like reading in public while reading romance novels, because I feel like it's just such a fun, illicit feeling, It is. You're like reading all these nasty things, and then everybody's like going on about their day. And that's one of the things I like least about living in LA is I never take public transportation anymore. And in Chicago, I used to ride a bus or a train, I would say minimally for like 45 minutes a day. Yeah. Whether I was going to and from work or going to and from a friend's house, I always was on the train, always was reading. And I always just like loved that feeling of like, when you're reading, even if it's
when your cheeks are all the way up the drywall, and you're like, they don't know that I'm reading this sexy.
And even if it's not a sex scene, even if it's just a romantic scene where you're just like squee, like
or do you giggle out loud on the train?
I do. Yeah, like I talk to myself and giggle out loud. Don't do that. People are like, hey, no, not you, sir, not you. Mm-mm.
How easy can you drop yourself in and out of the story when you pick up your book?
I don't have
that. That's the one thing I find with a book. I can immediately drop right back into where I'm picking up. In audio, it takes me a minute to like
remember where you were at.
And also to like run up into the story. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, but maybe because I've been reading books since I was a kid, that as soon as I pick up that page, whatever's happening, I just scoom right into the story.
I agree.
You know?
I can read.
I miss that.
I don't at the moment usually do this. Although now with a podcast, I typically read 2 books at a time. But when I was younger, I would be reading 3, 4, 5 books at the same time because I would have books for different classes. And then I would have like, you know, my romance novel pleasure book, and then I might have like a fantasy or young adult or sci-fi or something going. And then I also might be reading like a business book or something like that. So I was constantly reading. And my mom used to like laugh at me because I'd have like one in the bathroom, and then I'd have one like by my bedside, and then I'd have one in my bag or purse or whatever I was carrying that day. So like depending on where I was at, I'd be like reading my different books. So yeah, I can dip in and out. Now I tend to read one book all the way through, or occasionally I'll read 2, but usually I try to keep the genres separate.
Yeah.
That's especially for this because I don't want the feelings I have for another book to bleed into the ones that we're reading for this, so that I can kind of keep my opinion relatively pure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like if I'm reading 2 at the same time, then I might be like, oh, feeling good feelings from the first one, and then I'm like transferring them onto this book, even though they shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's where I'm at. Go.
But yeah, eventually I want to move back where there's public transit so that I can read illicit books. Because it's not like now, like places I go, I'm like with my kid in the park, and I'm like, that's not as fun.
No.
I mean, I still will read in the park while my kid's playing when they get bigger, but it's just not as fun as like being on a bus or a train and like seeing all these people in their business outfits and going to work, and you're like, hee. I'm reading about sex.
Maybe somebody there in their business outfit has like, you know, there'll be a dude and he's got like ladies' underwear on.
Ooh, like, yeah. Yeah, and I want to know, like, maybe he has ladies on. Then I can fantasize, too.
Yeah.
Because there's all these strangers, so it's, like, it helps, like, as we're going to different places, me to, like, not that I would ever do any of these things, but you're like, oh, then maybe you'll meet across the train, and then maybe all these, you know, because you're already, like, in your lusty, you know, primal brain, and then you get off the train, and you have, like, a nice little giggle, and you walk to wherever you're going.
Yeah.
That's great.
The one thing I love about being an adult is that I think my body's ramped up. It's trying to get me pregnant, you know? So, like, you know me. I'm looking at everybody. I'm looking at homeless dudes. I'm looking at everyone. I'm like, ah. But, like, the one thing that I really love is that I'm seeing grown men in just, like, a new light. And so there's so many guys that I see that that are so fucking yummy. I'm just like, and I've started grunting out loud and not knowing it and like catching myself just being like, and I'm like, what the fuck was that, Shawnee? Like, the fuck? Like walking by, like, what are you doing? This is not what we do. Yeah. But that'll be so fine, Bridget.
I love when you tell me, like, you come over to my house and because of my children, you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm not having kids. Like today, I was like, don't mind me, I have throw up on my shirt, and you were like, Number three. Behind, you have to feed them every day, 3 times at least a day. And what was the second one? Oh, you have to clean up all their shit.
You can clean up all their shit.
You have to, like, anything you do for yourself, you have to do for them. I think was number 2. So if you pee, they have to pee.
They have to pee.
If you poo, they have to poo. If you shower, they have to shower. Like, you get dressed, they have to get dressed. Literally everything you do, you have to do for other people.
I mean, also. I've just been entertaining the thought just like one last time, you know, like I'm 35. So everybody's like, your clock is ticking and I have endometriosis. So they're like, your clock's done. Like you're done. You'll be lucky if you know, have a dusty egg left. But, you know, so I'm just trying to entertain it like one last go.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking at all my friends who have kids and things like that. And I just can't get over that you got to feed them every day, like 3 times a day or 10 times a day, like you say, snacks.
It's like 6.
Yeah, which just adds more fuel to the fire of like, no. And then I was like, dang, you got to like clean up after them. Like Kira's markers, like I just saw you clean up all her stuff or have her clean it up. And like 5 minutes later, she got markers everywhere again. And I'm like, you got to do this again.
Yeah.
Like I will kill this kid. They will not survive. I'm like, what is you doing? I would have all those baby gates.
4 marker tops, no markers. My house is small. I don't know where they are. And I have 2 markers with no caps. They're not the same as the 4 caps I have. And because here's the thing. I, at one point, was smart. And I was only buying one type of marker.
Yeah.
And then Christmas happened. And Kira has very generous relatives who we love. But they did not know about the type of markers we have. Because we now have 4 kinds of markers. And 4 types of caps and 4 types of markers. So you can't just mix and match. Yeah.
I would be
a
like,
disaster.
I would be like, this marker doesn't have a cap. Trash.
No, it's. I mean, I put them up there in the event that I find them, because occasionally I'll find it like the next day in the couch, or like just somewhere like in a shoe or something. You find it random. Toddlers take things and put things in bags, and they like carry things around a lot. And so occasionally I find them, but yeah, there's a couple right now that I'm like, well, even if I find the marker, it's dried out now. So I may as well just throw this cap out. So I think you're maybe going to be on Team Vicious, where he's like, I'm never going to have kids. I have no desire to have kids.
None.
And now I can't because my wife's a ghost. All right, friends. Until next time, may your books be your lover.
And your hand your best friend. Yowza.
Thanks for listening.
Subscribe to our channel to get new episodes, clips, and more.
And click here to watch our previous reviews and author interviews.